welcome back. This is Jana from Purl Together, and this is video 2 of the Sloth series, where we are working on the pattern called the Rose City Rollers. There's a link down below. Okay, so first I want to say welcome to all the new subscribers here on the YouTube channel, as well as all the new members of our Purl Together Facebook group. You guys are great. It's been really fun to see everybody join and everybody be really supportive and welcoming, and I'm encouraging of all the new and beginner and also returning experienced knitters that we have that are kind of getting back into it. So that's been really fun to watch all those people join our group, and then everybody else kind of rally around and be really encouraging and supportive. So awesome. Okay, so you've got your pattern, and you should be just finished knitting that inch or inch and a half of the cuff. So let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at where we at. We are just finished the cuff. So we did our cast on. I've written a 44 here because that's how many stitches I casted on for worsted weight. And then we've gone through this and we've knitted just straight stockinette stitch, which is what causes the rolling, actually. That's what causes this rolling down. If you did garter stitch, this would not happen. Garter stitch meaning you're knitting a row and then purling a row. So that's how you do it in the round. Now if you were doing garter stitch on straight needles, you would just go back and forth and you would knit every row, because if this was your knitting needle, you would knit across, then you turn it over. But anyway, that would prevent that rolling of the cuff. So since these are the Rose City Rollers, we want that. Okay, so I'm done with mine. I have knitted, I don't know, I didn't measure it. It's approximately an inch, because I know that when I do that, that's my thumb, that's about an inch. And then just because I'm a little OCD, I actually counted the rows because I wanted to know how many I'd done so that I could make a note of that for my next sock so that they match. So I did on mine, I'm just gonna make a note that on mine I did 10 rows for the cuff. Okay, so I'm just making note of that. That way I don't have to measure the second one. You know, I just like to count rows. Okay, so now we're going to begin the heel flap. All right, knit across the first 2 needles. Now that if you have double pointed needles, you'll knit across needles 1 and 2. Since I'm using circular needles, I'm just knitting across my first one. Let me get myself organized here. So I'm just going to knit my 22 stitches straight across because I have 44 stitches total on my cast on. And so I have 22 on each needle. Simple enough. And I have a tangle going here, so bear with me while I sort myself out. All right. Now, what I kind of wanted to make a note of as I knit across here is, you know, I'm new to all this, so if you see something with the videos that you'd like to make a suggestion about, you know, am I holding my hands too close and it makes you car sick? Am I too far away and you can't see? Feel free to, you know, shoot me a private message on Facebook. I mean, you probably don't need to comment on the YouTube channel because, you know, that might be a little tedious for everybody else to read and wade through, but I'm certainly open to constructive criticism. Like, please don't just bash me. Knitters are nice people. I know you wouldn't do that. Anyway, but yeah, shoot me a message if you have any suggestions of things I can do to improve my channel. I want this to be a constructive and positive experience for everybody. So, okay, so I'm almost across my first section here. Now this will be the instep, or the top of the foot. And now I'm going to turn this over, and this will be the heel flap, or the back of the heel. And if you look at the photograph of the pattern, we're going to knit this square right here, or this rectangle. And we're not going to do anything with these instep or top of the foot stitches right now. We're just going to work on this back heel section. So all of this, okay? Now, if you're using double pointed needles, this will be needles 3 and 4. And she and I would both encourage you to combine those into one needle. So if you are using 4 double pointeds and you have needles 1, 2, 3, and 4, combine those into one needle. You can either do that before you knit the row, or you can just do that now and knit them all onto one needle, okay? So what she says, row 1, and the RS in parentheses means right side. So this is the right side, as opposed to the inside is bumpy, and that's the wrong side, just like with any other fabric. All right, so right side, row 1. SL1 means slip 1, okay? So the general rule is you slip as if to purl. So you go in as if to purl and just slip that off. Okay, slip one. Now, if it says specifically slip one knit-wise, then you would go in as if to knit. But when we do that, watch what happens. That twists the stitch, and it turns it so it's kind of facing to the right, as opposed to these, which are sort of open to the left. So I don't want to twist the stitch unless the pattern tells me to, so I go in as if to purl, and slip that off, okay? Slip one, knit one across the needle. Now those two directions are in parentheses, so you're going to repeat that across the needle, working all the stitches across this back side. Okay, go in as if to purl, slip that off, and knit the next. Slip one, knit one. All right, slip one, knit one, and you're just going to carry on with that across the back. Now what that does is, because we're not knitting the alternating stitch, we're just slipping it off and we're carrying it up a row, and then we're knitting the next. And what that's going to do actually is create a reinforced heel flap that will be a little bit of padding and a little more durability on the back of the heel. Now that's important if you're somebody that wears out your heels quite a bit. That's a good thing. Now the reason I'm pausing here is she does not specify this in the pattern, but I will. You can do this or not. It's not a crisis either way. But when you get to the last one, we're going to slip that, and now she would have you just regularly knit the last stitch, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is a Jana note. I prefer to knit my last one into the back loop, and I'll show you why in a moment. You can do whatever makes you happy. I'm going to knit into the back loop of my last stitch, and I am intentionally twisting that one a little bit. It's gonna actually turn it to the left, and it opens it up, and it will make a really nice edge that you will see later. Now if you don't remember to do that, it's not a crisis. If you don't want to do that, that's totally fine, but I prefer to do it, and you'll see why. So we finished row one of the heel flap. Okay, so then it says turn. So all we're going to do is turn our work over, and you can see now where we've slipped a stitch, because this yarn carries across the back of it, because we didn't knit that one. We didn't knit these alternate ones. So that's what's going to create that little bit of extra reinforcement. All right, now row two, WS means wrong side. So on the wrong side, we're going to slip the first stitch, and again, slip the first stitch. Now I'm just hanging on to this so it doesn't get super like sloppy and widened out. So go in as if to purl, slip that off, and then we're simply going to purl across. Okay, we're just going to purl our way back across. Now that looks a little funny. I'm going to take that back out and see why, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think what happened, oh yeah, here's what I did. I did mess that up. Let me put that back. I'll show you what I've done. I had my needle on the top here. You always want to have your needle coming off the front if you're purling, and not off the back. So that was my mistake, and I could tell it looked funny. So I'm going to take this needle back around behind, and you want to slip as if to purl, making sure that the yarn is coming off the front of your work. So that was my mistake. So we slipped the first stitch, and now we're just going to purl our way across, okay? And again, purling is in from the back, wrapping counterclockwise, and then through, okay? All right, so the even number rows are really easy for this whole heel flap square. Well, it ends up being a rectangle, kind of. The even numbered rows are simply slipping the first stitch and purling across. And that's pretty straightforward, huh? All right. Normally I would stop filming and just go ahead and do this, but I only have 22 stitches, so bear with me. Fast forward if you want to. Okay, and then just purl your last one, like normal. All right, and then then it says turn. So we just turn our work. So we're completely ignoring this front side for now. The top, and I should really organize myself better. My apologies. Okay, so again, you can see what we've got going on here. Now it's starting to create a little bit of a pattern. That will become a lot more evident in a couple of more rows. Now it says row 3. We're on the right side again, slip 1, and we're slipping as if to purl. Now, but this is the knit side, so I'm having the yarn in the back because these are knit stitches that are facing me. Okay, so that is the difference. So slip 1 as if to purl, knit 1, slip 1, off, knit the next, slip, knit, slip, and you're going to do that all the way across. And my little addition to the pattern is when you get to the last one, knit it through the back loop. Again, if you don't want to do that or you don't want to remember, that's fine. You're the boss of your knitting. That's okay. Don't if you don't want to. I'll show you why I prefer that, but it's up to you. I'm going to knit this last one into the back, and all that means, instead of going in the front like normal, I'm going into the center of the stitch and knitting into the back half of that loop. That's it. Pretty simple. Okay, and then turn your work. And again, I have the purl side facing me, and we're leaving this alone. And you can see how that's starting to get more reinforced, and you can feel that it's getting a little bit thicker. It's particularly exaggerated with worsted. So this is coming off the front. I am slipping that off as if to purl, and now I'm purling back across. And that's going to be row 4. So what's going to happen is you're just going to continue knitting, doing your slip 1, knit 1 pattern on the right side of your work, and then you're going to slip 1 and purl all the way across on the wrong side of your work. And we're just going to continue these 2 rounds until we have the heel flap to the desired size. I've just completed row 4, and I just wanted to pause for a moment and show you what's happening on these edges. Let me use my other needle to point with here. You can see that we're starting, because we slipped the first stitch of each row, we're drawing it up, and so you will have half the number of edge chain. It looks like a crochet chain actually on this edge. You'll have half the number of those as you do total stitches. So for me, I have 22 stitches here. I will have 11 of these edges. So I've completed row 4, and I have 2 of these, 1, 2. So if you forget to count your rows, or you don't have a little clicker, or you don't want to make hash marks on a piece of paper, I never do. I just count my edge stitches. And the reason that I knit into the back of this last one is because it makes a cleaner edge. Again, not a crisis if you don't want to, but I think it makes a cleaner, easier to see chain stitch on the edge. And you might appreciate that later when we will be picking up these stitches to make the gusset, and that will be in the next video. So, but either way, okay, so continue knitting those 2 rows. The pattern says repeat rows 3 and 4 until you have worked a total of however many rows that is for you. So you have worked a total of 28. It's half the number of your total cast on stitches. So for me, I cast on 44. I'm going to do that for a total of 22 rows, or like I just said, for me, 11 of these chain edges. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. Leave me some questions. If make a comment if you don't get that or you have questions about that. All right, I've knitted my heel flap. You can see the texture that has evolved as a result of the slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1 all the way across on this side. And then we just purl back across, and you can see where we've carried across the yarn across the stitch that we slipped, and how that makes that kind of, you can feel how it's made that a little bit thicker texture. On the edges, I've counted my chain stitches. Let me move this out of the way here, and so I can point with my other needle. And I've counted my other stitches here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you can see how that made a nice edge. And then on the edge where I chose to knit into that back loop, I have an edge that's easy to see here as well. And again, that's not a big deal. It's optional. Okay, so what I want to explain here real quick though is normally we have the math, the knitting math is nice and even, where I have 22 stitches across here and I have 11 chain stitches here and I have 44 around. So it's all, you know, 11 is 1/4 of the total number of cast on stitches, and this is 1/2 of that. So it all works, it's all nice and neat. It becomes not so nice and neat if you choose to make your heel flap a little bit taller. You would want to do that if you have high arches, for example, and you need a little more space to get your sock on. Let me get the picture here. Pardon my shuffling around. So this is the beginning photo, and I'll turn it this way. This is the heel flap we've just completed, and what we're going to do is we're going to end up creating a gusset right here. So if you make this heel flap longer, you're going to have a bigger diameter here around. The sock will be bigger in diameter around the portion that goes over the top of your heel, basically, or your instep. So if you have a high instep, then I would suggest go ahead and make your rectangle, make your square here, you know, do a couple extra rows. So if you have, if you're knitting the small size, for example, and you have 28 stitches across here, and you have an edge that is 14, you know, maybe you go up to 16 chain stitches, you know, do a couple, 3, 4 more, well, you do 4 more rows. You know, your mileage may vary. You're the boss of your knitting, and if you want to custom fit this for, if you know the recipient has high arches, then do that. I'm going to leave mine. This is for my daughter, and I think she has pretty regular kind of feet, so I'm going to leave it. Okay. Moving on to the part that says the heel turn. So let's just look at this for a second. For the heel turn, you will be working short rows. Some people get intimidated by short rows. All that means, you guys, it's not a big deal. All that means is short row just means when you knit across here, you're not going all the way to the end. You're going to turn around and purl back before you reach the end. And you'll see the purpose for that in a moment. So when we talk about short rows, that doesn't have to be a scary or intimidating thing at all. All it means is that it's not a full length row. That's it. Okay, if you're knitting the small size, you knit 16 stitches. Medium would be 19 stitches, and the large size would be knit 21. That is roughly 2 or 3 stitches past the halfway mark. My general rule of thumb for knitting the heel turn is I go 2 stitches past halfway. So I have 22 stitches here. So 11 would be halfway. 2 past that for me would be 13. So again, I'm going to slip 1. Now she doesn't slip 1. Okay, we'll go with what she says. I have my own way of doing things, but I can adjust, so we'll maintain the integrity of the pattern. Okay, so you knit across your prescribed number, and for me that's going to be 2 past halfway. So for me that's 13. 13. And I'm going to pause here to say too that you notice we've stopped doing the slip stitch. I'm going to say that's optional. When I knit socks for myself, often I will continue that reinforcement, because now we're turning the heel, meaning we're going around the bottom and we're getting to the bottom side of the foot. Let's look at the picture. Let me show you. We're doing this little triangle section right here. And so I like to have reinforcement on mine under that. So if you wish to continue these lines, these columns of slipped stitches, you certainly can. You'll just have to pay attention to where those are. I'm not going to complicate this any more than I already have for you, since this is the beginner series sloth knitting. So I've knitted 2 past my midway point, and then on row 1 it says SSK, which means slip, slip, knit. Slip, slip, knit means you're slipping 2 stitches, and generally that means knit wise. So we do want to twist these so that they face, right now the stitches like this, we want them to face up. We want them to be open up toward the top. So slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit. Then we're going to poke in the left stitch underneath, the left needle, sorry, poke in the, here I'll show you again since I misspoke. Poke in the left needle underneath, get it back on top, and it looks, and then we're just going to knit those 2 together. So slip, stitch, slip, slip, knit. And what that does is it turns the stitch up toward the sky and it lays them flat together. Okay, let me take that out and show you that one more time. All right, I'm putting them back. I'm putting them back untwisted the way they were at first. Okay, so I'm going to show you that again. Slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit. Take your left needle underneath and then kind of work it around and flip it on top. Wrap counterclockwise, and we're knitting these two together. Okay, that's a slip, slip, knit. Then we're going to knit one stitch after that. Okay, now you can see that decrease. A decrease just means we've taken 2 stitches and knitted them together, and we've decreased down to 1. So we made 2 into 1. Okay, all right. So then we knitted 1 after that, and then turn. So we're just going to turn our work over now so the wrong side is towards you. Row 2, WS is wrong side. Okay, slip 1 as if to purl, making sure your yarn's coming off the front. And then it says purl 5 or purl 7, depending on what size pattern you're using. Now, I'm not going with the numbers on the pattern. I usually purl 5. Now, what my goal is to make sure I have, you'll see what I'm going to do. I have 2, 4, 6 stitches left on my short row that I did not knit. So I'm just going to keep that in the back of my mind for a second. I'm going to slip 1, and then I'm going to purl 5. You purl however many it says on the pattern for you to do. See, now I'm talking and not really paying attention. 1, 2, 3, slip 1, purl 4, purl 5. Now, when I decrease this time, I'm going to purl 2 together. I'm going to purl 2 together like this. I'm just going in as if to purl, but I'm going to go under both stitches, wrap counterclockwise, and slip them both off. Okay, I'll show you that one more time. That's just a decrease on the wrong side. I'm just purling 2 together, purl together. Hence the name of our group. Let's go underneath as if to purl. Do that with both stitches. Wrap counterclockwise, just like a normal purl, and purl them 2 together, slip them both off. Okay, and then purl your last one. Awesome. Now I want to make sure I have the same number of stitches left on this side that I did on this side, and that was 6. We had 6 back here, and sure enough, I have 6 here. So, yay. Now I'm going to turn, and that formula, by the way, that formula works no matter how many stitches you have on your back needle. You can knit 2 past the center, do your decreasing, flip it over, purl, slip 1, purl 5, and carry on. And it will work every time. You'll have varying numbers of stitches left over after your short row, but it will work. That's good knitting math. Okay, so we've turned it over. Now, that's a short row too because we have not knitted these. So right now we're only working these center stitches, which is going to end up, it's going to make like a little triangle. It's actually going to make a half circle, kind of. You'll see. All right, row 3 on our heel turn is slip 1. Slip 1 as if to purl, and our yarn's coming off the back because we have the knit side toward us. Slip 1 as if to purl. And now we're simply going to knit to the gap. Now this is where you can have the option of slipping the ones where you have the column there if you choose to carry on that reinforcement. It won't work out evenly every time because we have an even number of stitches now. But we're going to knit to 1 before the gap. You can see the gap. That's where we turned our work before. And you can see the gap. We're knit 1 to the gap. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to slip, slip, knit. So we're going to slip this off as if to knit, slip this one off as if to knit, put your left needle underneath and kind of twist that around, knit those 2 together. That closes the gap and that lays that flat, nicely flat. Okay, let me show you that again. I'm also going to take that out and do it again because I think I might have a split stitch here, or it's just been worked enough that it's kind of untwisting. But I'm going to show you that again anyway. Okay, so we've knitted, we're just knitting across, stop 1 before the gap, okay, and then slip it off as if to knit, slip as if to knit, go in with your left needle underneath and flip that over the top, and knit those 2 stitches together. And because we slipped them off, they will lay flat, kind of opened up to the sky, and then simply knit your next one. And now we're going to turn our work, and we only have 4 stitches left now on this side. Okay, turn your work. All right, Now your working yarn's coming off the front. We're going to slip the first one as if to purl. Purl your way back across. Let me move this paper. It's kind of annoying in the background, isn't it? Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm new to this, so I'm sure I will do annoying things while I'm getting my system worked out here. Okay, so we're going to purl again until we get to one stitch before the gap. You can feel it. You can feel it in the fingers of your left hand, and you can see it coming up as well. And then we're going to go under, and we're going to purl these two together to close the gap. Yay. Purl the next one, and turn your work. Awesome. So you're going to continue doing this in this way. Slip one as if to knit your way across. We're going to continue doing this until we have all of the stitches that we haven't knitted yet. We're going to do that until we have all the stitches used up that are past the gap. And you'll see what happens is the turning the heel thing is kind of magical to me, really. It's pretty amazing. Here we are again, one stitch before the gap. Slip, slip as if to knit, in underneath with the left needle, flip your needle over the top, and knit those two together. Okay, and then I always give it a little tug and straighten it out because I like how it looks when I do that. And I'm the boss of my knitting. All right, and then just knit the next one. See what's happening here? Do you see what's happening here? We're actually, check that out. We're making a spot for your heel. I just love that. I'm so easily amused, but I think that's fabulous. Look, we're making a heel cup. Awesome. Okay, slip as if to purl. Purl your way back across. So just continuing doing those two rows until you've used up all the stitches on each side. Now it may or may not come out evenly. After you do your decreasing, you may or may not have one left over, you know, to knit or purl normally. We'll see how it turns out. So here we are, purl these two together to close our gap. And purl the next one. And we have two left. And turn. All right. Slip as if to purl. Knit your way back across. Okay, I'm going to do these last two rows. And we'll see if it comes out right. And if it doesn't, like I said, do not panic. It's not a crisis if it doesn't come out evenly. You'll see what I mean by that in a moment. All right. Slip, slip, left side needle in. Oh, and it is going to come out where we have just the right number left to knit our last one. Yay. Now, do you see on my yarn I've got this little funky strands? Now, that irritates me. It may not bother you, but sometimes that happens there. See, I just went back and kind of reworked that and smoothed that out. You know, if stuff like that doesn't bother you, don't worry about it, but I'm a little bit, yeah, I'm a little picky. Imagine that. You'll get to know that about me and, you know, take that with a grain of salt. You're the boss of your own knitting. You do what works for you. All right, as we get done with this, you will end your heel turning with the purl row. Now here's our gap. We're going to purl these two together to close the gap. And then purl your last one. Yay. You have just turned the heel. That's fabulous. I know. I just think that's lovely. I think it's amazing. See, you can visualize that, and then your heel would go right there. I'm so tickled and easily amused by these things. Okay, so we are at the end of the heel turn portion of your pattern. Turn to the right side. Now you should have 16, 20, or 22 stitches left on your needle. I do not. If you're knitting along with me and you began with casting on 44, you will have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 left on your needle. Okay? But you will have however many you have. All right. You guys are fabulous. Congratulations. You have now knitted the heel flap and you have successfully turned the heel. That is lovely. we will go back. Now our next step here, this is our top of the foot stitches or your instep stitches. Don't worry too much about that yet. Our next goal here will be to pick up the stitches along both sides of these heel flaps. So what that means, and I'll do that in part 3. I don't want to overwhelm anybody right off the bat here. We're going to pick up these stitches so that that will allow us, the goal here would be to go back around and end up joining up with these and knitting on to the rest of the foot. So you have done very, very well. Be sure to leave comments here on the video or in the Facebook group, or shoot me a message if you need to. Like and subscribe down below this video, and congratulations on completing the heel flap and the heel turn. You should pat yourselves on the back, get yourself a glass of wine or adult beverage or whatever makes you happy. See you next time.